Malaria is a highly synchronized, multi-stage parasitic invasion. To defeat it, clinicians must track the pathogen across specific spatial locations and temporal windows. Human infection is driven primarily by 5 distinct species of the Plasmodium parasite: Plasmodium falciparum, vivax, malariae, ovale, and knowlesi. While Plasmodium falciparum accounts for over 99% of cases in the African region, Plasmodium vivax poses a massive threat elsewhere, causing over half of all reported infections in India. Regardless of the species, the initial target isn't the bloodstream; it travels directly to the liver. Because different species behave differently once they reach the hepatic tissue, identifying the exact variant on day 1 tells the clinician exactly where the parasite will hide and when it will strike next. This initial phase is the pre-erythrocytic stage. The sporozoites burrow into hepatocytes and begin a massive replication process, multiplying into thousands of merozoites. If the invading species is Plasmodium falciparum, this hepatic replication is continuous. Once mature, the infected liver cells burst, dumping the merozoites straight into the bloodstream. Plasmodium vivax and Plasmodium ovale operate differently. A portion of their sporozoites do not immediately develop. Instead, they enter a state of strict dormancy inside the liver cells. These sleeping parasites are known as hypnozoites. These hypnozoites can remain undetected for weeks to a full year before reactivating. When they do, they initiate a new erythrocytic cycle, causing a sudden clinical relapse of malaria long after the initial mosquito bite. For these variants, clearing the blood of active parasites will stop the immediate fever, but it will not cure the patient. Eradication requires specific chemical targeting of this hidden hepatic reservoir. Once the liver cells rupture, tens of thousands of merozoites flood into the venous system, seeking out red blood cells. The merozoite penetrates an erythrocyte and begins its intracellular cycle, first appearing as a distinct ring form. It then matures, consuming the cell's hemoglobin and developing into an active trophozoite. Finally, it divides its nucleus multiple times to become a schizont, packed with a new generation of merozoites, until the internal pressure causes the red blood cell to violently rupture. This chart maps the 48-hour parasitic life cycle against the host's temperature spikes. The synchronous bursting of red blood cells triggers the febrile paroxysm, starting with a rapid temperature drop in the cold stage, followed by a hot stage, and concluding with a sweating stage. As these cycles repeat, the patient develops anemia. This is driven by the direct physical destruction of the red blood cells, as well as parasite-induced suppression of the bone marrow, which halts the production of replacement cells. Simultaneously, the spleen physically enlarges. This splenomegaly is the result of massive macrophage proliferation, as the immune system works to engulf and clear the debris of parasitized red blood cells. The classic clinical triad of fever, anemia, and an enlarged spleen are the direct macroscopic alarm bells signaling these synchronized microscopic explosions. Plasmodium falciparum has evolved a mechanism to avoid the spleen entirely, making it uniquely lethal. Once inside the red blood cell, this species forces the cell to express a specialized antigen on its surface called Plasmodium falciparum erythrocyte membrane protein 1, or PFEMP1. Through a process called cytoadherence, this antigen acts like glue, binding the infected red blood cell directly to specific receptors on the vascular endothelium. PFEMP1 also causes rosetting, where the infected cell binds to multiple healthy, uninfected red blood cells, creating a physical clump. These clumps lodge deep inside the blood vessels of internal organs. The resulting microvascular blockages cut off oxygen supply, leading to congestion, renal failure, and cerebral malaria. By sequestering itself inside deep vessels, the parasite escapes splenic clearance. It weaponizes the host's own capillary architecture to gain a safe haven, destroying the internal organs in the process. To correctly identify the infection, clinicians must draw a peripheral blood sample shortly after the height of the patient's fever paroxysm, before administering any antimalarial drugs. A thick blood smear offers high detection sensitivity, identifying as few as 5 to 10 parasites per microliter of blood, but it cannot differentiate between the Plasmodium species. To pinpoint the exact species, clinicians rely on the thin smear. It requires a higher parasite load to return a positive result, but it preserves the cellular structure, making it the gold standard for morphological speciation. Under a microscope, Plasmodium falciparum presents distinct shapes, specifically the ovale form, double dot rings, and multiple rings inside a single cell. By comparison, Plasmodium vivax looks entirely different, marked by large, irregular amoeboid shapes as the trophozoite matures. Beyond visual morphology, rapid diagnostic tests allow clinicians to detect the specific biochemical antigens produced by the parasites. The Plasmodium falciparum-specific histidium-rich protein 2, or PFHRP2, is an antigen produced exclusively by falciparum trophozoites. A positive result on this specific band definitively isolates the deadliest variant. Meanwhile, parasite lactate dehydrogenase, or PLDH, is an enzyme produced by the viable parasites of all species. This pan-malarial marker confirms the presence of an active infection. However, these rapid tests share a critical limitation. If the parasitemia drops below 100 parasites per microliter, their sensitivity falls sharply, increasing the risk of a false negative. Identifying the correct visual or biochemical artifact dictates exactly which pharmacological weapon is deployed, determining whether a patient receives targeted therapy or faces fatal systemic complications. The precise diagnosis directly informs treatment parameters set by the National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program. For falciparum malaria, clinicians deploy artemisinin-based combination therapies, or ACTs, which are designed to rapidly destroy the active schizonts and trophozoites replicating in the blood. But if diagnostics reveal Plasmodium vivax or ovale, clearing the blood stages is insufficient. Primaquine must be layered onto the treatment protocol. It specifically attacks dormant hypnozoites in the liver. Failing to administer it leaves the hepatic reservoir intact, guaranteeing a clinical relapse. These targeted therapies are constantly threatened by multi-drug resistance. Mutations in genes like the Plasmodium falciparum chloroquine resistance transporter alter the parasite's internal proteins, preventing drugs from binding and allowing the infection to survive. To prevent these mutations from spreading geographically, monotherapy with compounds like artemisinin is strictly banned, forcing the parasite to confront multiple chemical mechanisms at once. Achieving global elimination targets relies entirely on a flawless sequence. Map the precise life cycle, intercept with exact diagnostic tests, and